Tonight on Reporting Scotland, police are treating the death of a man in Airdrie as murder. Gary Moore died outside his home in a drive-by shooting.
He's laughed, I can hear it now, it's infectious, you know, you just hear it light up a room. The guy was always happy, do you know what I mean? And it's just unbelievable, you know what I mean? It's unbelievable, really, what's happened.
Also coming up on the programme, a brand new £28 million school, which has only been open for a few weeks, has had to be shut because of health and safety concerns. Will Scotland be the first part of the UK to tell parents they can't smack their children? Legislation aimed at banning it is published at Holyrood. Police and mental health workers team up to attend emergency call-outs as part of a pilot scheme to help those in distress. And we're all at sea as the world's top visually impaired sailors compete in the World Championships off Helensburgh, the first time the event's been held in UK waters. Good evening. Police are treating the death of a man in Airdrie as murder. Gary Moore was shot dead in a residential street yesterday evening. Police Scotland are appealing for information about a small white vehicle seen in the area. Katie Hunter reports.
The aftermath of a shooting which left one man dead. Gary Moore was murdered outside his home on Gartness Drive. This morning, forensic experts were still at the scene, examining the area and gathering potential evidence. 32-year-old Gary Moore was well known in the area. His friends can't believe what's happened.
He's always the same. Every time you see him, he just have a mad laugh, smile. You can hear his laugh. I can hear it now. It's infectious, you know. You just hear it light up a room. The guy was always happy. Do you know what I mean? And it's just unbelievable. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable, really, what's happened.
Police sealed off part of a car park near Gartness Drive this afternoon. Detectives are appealing for information about a small white vehicle seen in the area last night. A similar car was found burnt out 22 miles away in Craigmaddy Road in the north of Glasgow.
Witnesses last night who are referring to a small white vehicle, I want to establish exactly what type of vehicle that is, whether there's one occupant, 2, 3 or 4, or whatever that is. I want to absolutely nail that down. The burnt out vehicle, I want to keep an open mind here and not just make an assumption that the vehicle up at Mulgai is the vehicle that was here last night.
Police have spent the day speaking to local people and looking at CCTV to try to find out exactly what happened last night. They believe this was a targeted shooting and are asking anyone who can help them catch the killer to come forward. Katie Hunter, Reporting Scotland, Airdrie.
A massive new school in Dumfries has been forced to close on safety grounds less than a month after it opened. More than 700 primary and secondary pupils will be off school on Monday, and the council says it will remain shut until the safety of the building can be independently guaranteed. Well, our education correspondent Jamie McIver is here. Jamie, this school's faced a number of problems.
Quite, Sally. This is a £28 million development. It's called the North West Community Campus, and it faced problems even before it opened to students last month when there was a water leak. Then in its first week, the campus had to shut after a child was hurt by a faulty door which came off its railings. Well, today it's alleged a TV screen fell off a wall, striking a pupil, so the school has now been shut again. Dumfries and Galloway councils say they have lost confidence in previous safety assurances given by contractors Graham Construction and the developers Hub South West. And the councils issued a statement in which they say the school will not reopen until, quote, every bolt, screw and fitting has been checked, double-checked and certified safe by a third party. But for the council, there are certainly big questions too about how a new school project has faced so many problems.
You just mentioned the contractors. What have they got to say?
Well, Grahams have commented on today's specific incident. They say they carried out an immediate and thorough investigation and say the screen was subject to a very high level of excessive force, which caused it to separate from the bracket, and they await the council's investigation into the circumstances surrounding the removal of the screen from the bracket. So the clear suggestion is that they think they did nothing wrong to cause this latest incident.
Jimmy, thanks very much for that. A man accused of an armed robbery at Gleneagles Hotel has told a court he was looking for something to steal on an earlier visit to the luxury complex. The Ed High Court in Edinburgh heard how a team of 3 armed robbers stole Rolex watches worth more than £500,000 from a jewellery store in Gleneagles in June last year. Richard Fleming admitted he'd visited the hotel 2 weeks before. He said he had been looking for small stuff to steal, but he said he had nothing to do with the armed robbery. The trial continues. Celtic has commissioned specialist consultants to look into what caused crushing outside its stadium before last weekend's game against Rangers. Fairhurst, which specialises in sports event safety management, will also be asked to recommend improvements to avoid a repeat in future. Fans have been asked to provide feedback through a special email address. 1 person was taken to hospital and 4 more were treated at the ground before Sunday's match. Scotland could become the first part of the UK to ban smacking. Legislation to close a loophole which allowed the smacking of children as justifiable assault has been introduced at Holyrood. The bill was proposed by the Green MSP John Finney and is supported by the government. Our correspondent Andrew Kerr has more.
Nursery school's out for the weekend, and there's one parenting practice that seems to be out for many mums and dads too: smacking.
I don't see how it solves anything apart from probably teaching your child to hit.
That's one view from one mum, but there's widespread political support. At Holyrood, a bill's been published today to ban smacking by a Green MSP.
All the evidence suggests that a young person exposed to violence and physical punishment of a child, however well-meaning is violence, it can potentially have negative effects. So, if this succeeds, that will provide children with the same protection that you and I enjoy.
Labour and the Liberal Democrats back it, and there's to be a free vote for the Conservatives. But most significantly though, the Scottish Government supports the ban, which means SNP MSPs are likely to back it too, although one still has to make up his mind.
We very much want to protect children. We've had a lot of cases where children, stories of abuse and things have come out either within families or beyond, and we absolutely want to crack down on that. On the other hand, we do not want, as the state, as the Parliament, to be interfering too much in family life.
Parental freedom is the argument used against any ban by the Scottish campaign group Be Reasonable. There's also concern about the possible criminalisation of loving parents.
Well, I mean, it certainly would criminalise parents, yes. If it were a crime to smack your child and you smack your child, you have then committed a crime. For doing something which I think many parents who don't smack their children and don't want to smack their children would say is actually, it's not a crime, it's something we don't want, but we don't need to go to prison for it.
So, in modern Scotland, smacking will be banned, but of course there is that age-old question: just how much of a role should the state have in family life? Andrew Kerr, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Only 1 in every 5 police call-outs is in response to a crime. The vast majority are due to mental health or welfare issues. The result, all too often people are taken to accident and emergency units where officers wait with them for assessment. Now, though, police in Glasgow are working alongside ambulance crews and other health professionals in a scheme that aims to fast-track people to the best services. Our health correspondent Lisa Summers was given exclusive access to the pilot last weekend.
Can you show Golf X-ray 99 to that call, please? Straight triage kit.
It's 12:42, the early hours of Saturday morning.
Called NHS Medical tonight, state that he's unable to keep himself safe.
We're heading for an address in the south side of Glasgow, following the mental health triage team.
So we're not in receipt of much information.
Police and paramedics working together. The police officer carries out a welfare check to ensure no crime has been committed. The paramedic will do a medical assessment. Together they decide how to fast-track the right help.
We're off to deal with a male that's just called in regards to being suicidal and is struggling to stop him from self-harming, so we have to go in right now.
Right, I'll let you in.
Thanks.
Because the triage team is here, officers first on the scene can now take on other duties. They tell me every shift they're responding to mental health calls.
We'd have to remain with the person inside. It could be that we remain with them to hospital and further on treatment, and take a number of hours, maybe up to 6 hours we could be with that person.
They've got more expertise in this area as well, which is ideal. We're not experts, but it's helping us a lot.
Thank you.
Deborah Simpson calls out the community psychiatric nurses. The team got a call to come to this address about 1:45. You heard Debbie say that she was going to go in to make an assessment with the paramedic. They've decided that they needed to call out the community psychiatric nurse team. Now they've arrived. It's now 1:40, so we're just waiting to see what the outcome of that is.
When was the last time you seen or heard from her?
In Govan, the police command and control centre is busy.
Can you have a look around and see if there's anything?
Staff here direct 999 calls across the city. 80% of them are not about crime, and that's why they say this new approach is long overdue.
Police Scotland aren't always the right organisation to deal with a particular incident, and it's great to have a joint initiative that we can go and deal with this and give people the right help that they need at the right time. It's something we're using quite regularly just now, and I think it's been a long time coming. The controllers here and the officers in the street really see a difference with that pilot just now.
Back with the team on the ground, and it's time to move. The man is taken to a psychiatric hospital for an assessment by a specialist doctor. Any other night, and he would have been taken to the emergency department.
He's now going to be taken to hospital, and that's just taken just over an hour for us to deal with the full incident from beginning to end, which is a really good outcome for him.
It's now nearly 3 a.m.
Very effective and very quick.
Yeah, I'm really glad that guy's got all the help that he can get regarding that. I'm pretty chuffed with that.
Back at base. This project is only 3 weeks old, but staff on the ground believe it's already making a difference. Lisa Summers, reporting Scotland, Govan.
And next week we'll find out more about how the police are responding to mental health issues when people are brought into custody. Health boards are to share an extra £10 million to help them cope with added pressure over the winter months. The Scottish Government said the Winter Resilience Fund is being distributed earlier to help the health service prepare. The cash is designed to allow health and social care services to increase weekend discharges when patients are fit to go home.
I'm confident that the work is going on to make sure that people are learning the lessons from last year, making the necessary preparations for this coming year. And when all those plans come in to me in October, then I'll be able to satisfy myself across the piece that all of our boards are ready for those winter pressures that they inevitably will have to face.
UK and French fishing leaders are still locked in talks to try to finalise a deal over scallop fishing rights in the English Channel. It follows violent clashes near the Bay of Seine off the Normandy coast last week. An agreement's been reached in principle, but the deal hinges on a reasonable compensation package for smaller British boats. Well, our reporter Rebecca Curran joins us now from Peterhead Harbour. Rebecca, good evening. What's the latest?
Well, Sally, a deal was sketched out in London on Wednesday between UK and French fishing leaders and the authorities, and they hope today to be able to dot the I's and cross the T's during a summit in Paris. And the leaders arrived for that summit around 2 o'clock this afternoon. They've been locked in talks for more than 4.5 hours now, and a source tells me that things are progressing very slowly. The sticking point is a reasonable compensation package for the smaller UK vessels involved in this row, and that has not been agreed yet. Of course, both parties want to reach a deal in order to avoid a repeat of the clashes that we saw in the English Channel at the start of last week. Up to 40 French vessels surrounded a small number of British boats. Smoke bombs and rocks were thrown, and a Peterhead registered scallop dredger was involved in a collision with other vessels. Now, that came after both sides failed to reach an agreement over when they can fish for scallops in the Bay of Seine. The French are bound by laws which says they can't from mid-May until the start of October to conserve stocks, and they wanted all UK fishing vessels to agree to the same rules. But as they try to hammer out the final stages of this deal in Paris tonight, all UK vessels have temporarily agreed to stop fishing for scallops in that area. Whether or not the deal can be ratified tonight, only time will tell.
Rebecca, thank you very much for that. You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's 17 minutes to 7. A reminder of tonight's top story. Police are treating the death of a man in Airdrie as murder. Gary Moore died outside his home in a drive-by shooting. And still to come, getting your 5 a day, we speak to modern pentathlete Jo Muir about her hopes for the Tokyo Olympics. Scotland's video games industry has been given a multi-million-pound boost with the creation of a research and development hub. It'll be based in Dundee, which has a reputation as a world-leading centre for computer games design. Our business correspondent David Henderson reports.
If you can look around and see, can you see the environment pretty well? Yes. Yeah,
It's a virtual world designed and built in Dundee. This game, called You Are Being Followed, has been snapped up by the electronics giant Sony. That's a big break for its lead developer, Naman Merchant. He came from India to Abertay University, drawn by the city's reputation for video gaming.
So you have a good environment over here, you have good people working from all across the world, different fields, everyone has different... if someone's really good with art, someone's really good with programming, someone's really good with design, and you just work with people together, and it makes the entire concept of working with games a lot of fun.
Video games are now the biggest entertainment industry in the world, and this one, Grand Theft Auto, is a blockbuster. Developed in Dundee, it put the city on the gaming map. But shoot-em-ups are not the only show in town, and a £9 million fund aims to support new developers and new projects, like student Emily Edholm and her game, Kinoko.
We see a trend overall in the gaming community. So if you look at indie companies and smaller companies, they go for these more peaceful and loving experiences instead of having something violent and sort of harsh.
This initiative is another sign of the reinvention of Dundee. So much of the city used to rely on traditional, heavy industry. It's now staking a claim with new, emerging technology. Dundee's Biome Collective. It's like a little bit of Silicon Valley. It's now joined this new research hub in a bid to take gaming in new directions.
See it as an access point for more people, more diverse people to come make games, for commercial reasons, for art, for creativity, for educational reasons. There's such a broad spectrum of things that this medium can access that we're lucky enough we can do that in Dundee.
So a new industry full of new ideas will get a fresh boost. These developers know the risks can be big, but the rewards are too. David Henderson reporting Scotland, Dundee.
Football now, and Scotland play World Cup semi-finalist Belgium this evening at Hampden. It's their final match before their Nations League campaign kicks off on Monday. Our senior football reporter Chris McLaughlin is at Hampden for us tonight.
Yes, the Scotland fans beginning to make their way here to the National Stadium. This place has been in the news for other reasons for the past few weeks. More about that later, perhaps next week. Tonight, the visit of Belgium, Alex McLeish's fifth consecutive friendly ahead of that Nations League match against Albania on Monday night. To discuss the match here is the former Scotland striker Kenny Miller. Kenny, it's a big, big test tonight, isn't it?
Huge test, but it's one the lads will be really looking forward to. It's the first international of the season. It's a good friendly to have and build up for the main event on Monday night against Albania. So yeah, it'll be a real test, definitely defensively tonight, but when we look at the lineup, there is some real attacking players in it and good quality footballers in the lineup. Yeah,
let's take a look a little bit closer at that lineup. What do you make of it in general in terms of the personnel, in terms of the shape?
Yep, I like the shape. It's I like the look of the back four if you include Craig Gordon. Obviously over Alan McGregor tonight, but if you look at it, it will be defensive tonight because we're going to be put under a lot of pressure. But with Ryan Fraser and Robertson in the wing back areas, they're two attacking players. They will have their work out for them tonight defensively. The middle four, McDonald, Armstrong, McGinn and McGregor, all good footballers, all guys who want to be on the ball, all guys, if we have it, can handle the ball, and definitely in McGregor and Armstrong in particular will be able to get forward and support Griffiths.
Kenny, thank you very much indeed for now. Belgium, the opposition tonight for Alex McLeish and for Scotland. The game is live as ever on BBC Radio Scotland. Also highlights tonight on BBC One from 10:35.
Chris McLaughlin there. Well, St Mirren have appointed a new manager following the departure of Alan Stubbs. Oran Kearney joins the Paisley club on a 3-year deal from Coleraine of Northern Ireland. The 40-year-old led Coleraine to the Irish Cup last season. His first match in charge of St Mirren will be against Celtic next Friday. Scottish modern pentathlete Jo Muir says it might be almost 2 years away, but the prospect of competing at the Tokyo Olympics is spurring her on. The 24-year-old's preparing for next week's World Modern Pentathlon Championships, where, as Jane Lewis explains, competing over 5 events might not be the only challenge she faces.
5 sports rolled into one. Competing in modern pentathlon is no mean feat. The sport was inspired by the traditional pentathlon held during the ancient Olympics.
So the day starts with a 200-metre swim. You just need to get off to a good start. Then we move on to the fence. The challenge with fencing is trying to keep your head together, and if you've lost a few hits in a row, it's just not dwelling on that. So the ride is the next event, and we get drawn a horse, which we've never ridden before. We get 20 minutes to warm up on that horse and to jump a maximum of 5 jumps. So that's quite tough because you've no idea what kind of horse you're going to get. And then the final event is the laser run, which is running. You run into the range, you clear five green lights, run 800 metres, clear 5 green lights, and you do that 4 times.
All this in one day of action. And if that's not enough, this year's World Championships takes place at high altitude in Mexico City. Another challenge to contend with.
I notice it most in the running. Normally, you just feel really short of breath. So I think that's probably going to be the hardest thing, is like when you're in a race, you're running hard, you're coming into the range, and to just try and keep it together.
And keeping it together is key for Muir, as she's looking to put down a marker for the Olympics in 2020. After missing Rio, that's a big target, with qualifications starting next year. Jane Lewis, reporting Scotland.
For the past week off Helensburgh, some of the world's top visually impaired sailors have been competing in the Blind Match Sailing World Championships. It's the first time the event's been held in UK waters. Teams from the USA, Canada and Australia have been hosted by the Royal Northern and Clyde Yacht Club with the help of volunteers. And our reporter Ian Hamilton joined them on the water.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The horn marks the start of racing on the final day of the World Blind Match Sailing Championships, being held here in Helensburgh. Before the competition began, I went out with some of the competitors to find out how it works.
We can hear beacons in the background here. What do these beacons all mean?
So the course is set up like a triangle. So the left-hand mark makes one sound, the right-hand mark makes another sound. So that's the start and finish line. And then the mark up at the top makes yet another sound.
Each sailing boat has 3 visually impaired sailors, split into different categories. B1s like Walter Ranieri are totally blind and can see nothing. Walter is a helmsman for Team USA. He explains what that means.
In as simplest terms, I turn the boat left or I turn the boat right.
Oh, you make it sound so simple. So in that case, how important are these beacons that we can hear in the background?
So for me, they're everything, because I mentally triangulate where I am on the course by listening to the buoys and listening for how the boats are moving through the water and communicating with my team.
Competing on home waters is Scot Laura Camage. She's a B3, which means she has a little vision which can help with the navigation of the boat. Laura has been match racing with the British team for the last 2 years.
In my team I've got 2 B1 sailors for this competition, so they can't see anything at all. So I'm doing all the visual aspects, but they can help with how the boat feels, and then the knowledge that they've got, they can share that, and we all work together to get round the course.
Teamwork got Laura's GB2 team all the way to the final, where they were beaten by GB1, who are now the world champions. Ian Hamilton, reporting Scotland, Helensburgh.
The weekend's here. If you're planning to be out and about, you'll want to hear what Christopher has to say about the weather outlook. What's in store?
Saturday dry, Sunday wet. There's a bit more to it. Let's have a look. Thank you very much indeed, Sally. Hello there. It was largely dry and cloudy for many of us today. Some lovely photos, though, from our weather watchers, and there was some sunshine at times. Great picture there from Kirsty. Now, as we go through the course of this evening and overnight, we've got a bit of a cloud sandwich. Cloud in the south, cloud in the north. In between, it's dry, it's clear, and it's quite chilly. Town and city temperatures, even in the central belt, 5 or 6 degrees. Further north, a little bit milder. And where we have the cloud, the chance of some spots of rain. So, to tomorrow, this is Saturday's chart. You can see whilst there is some outbreaks of rain nearby, mainly affecting parts of Wales and England, we're to the north of it, and we should stay largely dry, but it will be fairly cloudy on Saturday. But probably the better of the 2 days this weekend, because all change on Sunday. It will be cooler with some showery rain. Let's have a look at that in detail. Here's Saturday. There's our areas of cloud in between, bright and sunny, but where we have the cloud in the south, a little bit of rain just through parts of Dumfries and Galloway and towards the borders at times, drying up by the afternoon, some sunshine. And you'll notice that band of cloud affecting southern areas tends to fizzle away through the afternoon, so if you wake up and it's a bit grey and a bit cloudy, it should be a little more cheerful come mid-afternoon. Temperatures similar to today, up to around 17 or 18 degrees. Chance of 1 or 2 showers through parts of Argyll, the Highlands and Islands, but elsewhere largely dry and fine, some spells of sunshine. There's that second area of cloud, once again producing some spots of rain through Caithness and Orkney. Shetland, you're probably going to get away with things dry and fine. If you're hill walking or climbing, chance of 1 or 2 showers in the west and northwest, elsewhere largely dry. And as I say, if it starts off rather cloudy, it should brighten up through the course of the day. Winds coming in from the south-southeast and temperatures there at Munro level or the summits. So, what about the rest of the afternoon? Well, little change really, largely fine to end things off, still cloudy in the far north, a few spots of rain, that cloud enveloping Shetland. Sunday altogether different, it's windier, it's wetter and it's colder. Showery outbreaks of rain through the morning, but come afternoon, showers become confined towards the far northwest, brightening up elsewhere, but it will be a cooler feel. Temperatures down a notch, but add on the wind and it will be feeling decidedly cooler compared with what we'll have tomorrow. And then Sunday night into Monday, deep area of low pressure, so a wet and windy night. And then for Monday itself, well, systems coming in off the Atlantic are fairly unsettled, and that unsettled theme with us throughout next week. That's the forecast for now.
Christopher, thank you very much. Now, before we go, a reminder of tonight's main news. British Airways could be fined as much as £500 million for a huge data breach which has affected tens of thousands of people. Hackers managed to access details of 380,000 bookings made with the airline over a 2-week period. BA says any customer who's been affected financially will be compensated. And that's all from Reporting Scotland for now. I'll be back with the late bulletin as usual just after the 10 o'clock news. Hope you can join me then. But until then, from everyone on the team here and around the country, have a very good evening.